Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Allen Hour. It's your boy, Dylan Allen, DA. That's my nickname right there. It's about damn time I've made this show. I've been wanting to make it for quite a while now, and we finally have the time to get it to you. So, without further ado, let's get it going. Now, what to expect from this show: 3 weekly shows, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Expect weekly releases there. And then I anticipate doing Giants post-game videos after every game every week. And although it's not looking too great right now, should be a lot of fun. And I hope to build a community where sports fans can come on here and can be fans of any team in the New York area and kind of chime in and voice their opinion on all the latest topics in sports. And, my goal here is just to create that community. And I think we can do it. I know there's a lot of people out there with podcasts and with different shows, but I think with this show for 1 hour a day, hence the Allen Hour, we'll hit all the big topics in New York sports. My favorite teams are the Giants, the Yankees. I'm a big Rutgers fan. That's where I went to school. So we're going to hit a lot here. I'm starting to get into the Knicks, so we will have some coverage there as well as the season kind of progresses there. Um, and maybe we'll get into hockey later down the line once the playoffs are almost around the corner. But for now, we'll focus on the Giants and the Yankees. So I hope you guys enjoy. Leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment too. I'll definitely be looking at those comments, and maybe we'll do a Q&A segment one of these episodes where comments left in the comment section. I'll put them on screen and I'll answer your questions about anything having to do with the Giants or the Yankees or anything like that. So, without further ado, let's get it going. So, we got ourselves a packed Monday today, the New York Football Giants, because they're the biggest topic right now in New York sports. They fall to 2-8 on the season. They lose to the Bears 24-20, and just a total collapse and an absolute blunder. How they lose that game. And it's not the first time they've lost a game like that this year. In fact, it's the fourth time. Per Adam Schefter, they are 0-4 this year in games where they've had double digit leads. And that's unacceptable. That is unacceptable. And you lose this game, and you not only lose it, but you also lose your quarterback for the fourth quarter, essentially, in Jackson Dart, and he leaves with a concussion, and he doesn't come back. So let's touch on the future of Brian Daboll, Joe Shane, all that fun stuff. We'll also touch on the future of Jackson Dart, and where does the team go from here? That's the big question. With the draft looming, do you trust Joe Shane to make that draft pick next year? Do you bring these guys back for a fifth season? We'll answer all those questions. But let's start with the game itself, a quick little breakdown of the game. The Giants looked great in the first half. Defensively, this might have been their best showing in a half of football that I can remember this year. And the Bears' offense has been rolling. I mean, they scored 47 points last week against the Bengals. And I know the Bengals' defense is historically bad, but still, they got some playmakers on that team. And Ben Johnson's a good coach. And I like to think he's got a good offensive system. And he's got Caleb Williams, who's supposed to be this big time quarterback. And the first half, you hold them to 7 points. You go in with a 10-7 lead, getting the ball back to start the second half, right? And then you get the touchdown from Jackson Dart on the opening drive, which I thought was beautiful on that second half drive. And all of a sudden, it's a 10-point game. And you look like you're in complete control, like they have in so many games this year, which has been the issue. They haven't been able to maintain it for all four quarters, which is why they say it ain't over till the fat lady sings. And for the Giants this year, that hasn't been any truer. Could not be truer. The number of games they have choked in the final minutes, the final quarters, it's a joke. And this is why I'm calling for the firing of Brian Daboll and Joe Shane. Now, will I think it will happen now, today, on Monday, November 10th? No, I don't think so. I do think by season's end, they are gone. Their contracts are up this year. John Mara, surprisingly to me at least, gave them another chance dating back to last offseason going into this year. I thought they were fired last year, to be honest with you. But he stuck with them. And you got to give John Mara credit, right? He did the process correct. He did it correctly this time. He didn't cut it too short. He let this whole situation play out. And he gave these guys, I believe, a fair shake. But it's gotten to a point where, as an owner, Your job is to win games and make money, right? I mean, that's your goals, right? I mean, so when you have these home games where you have 60% 49ers fans, and don't kid yourself, this weekend it's going to be similar with Packers coming into town. They will fill up that stadium, and Giants fans will sell their tickets because who wants to go watch this team right now? And especially if Jackson Dart doesn't play. I mean, who wants to watch that team on Sunday? I know I don't. I don't want to be there, especially for what they're going for right now. I think I saw last night $160. I'm not paying that to go watch Russell Wilson. From what we've seen, he's atrocious. And so, from an owner standpoint, I just think that Mara's had enough of this. I think he knows he has a quarterback, but he just doesn't have a coach. And the GM, I gotta give him credit for getting Dart right. I mean, we're not going to skip on that. I'm not going to skip on that, but there have been too many mistakes over the 4 year period they've been here to keep them around for a fifth year, and to not only just keep them around, but also to give them a new contract. Because as I mentioned, their contracts expire. So are they essentially worth a contract re-up, or is it just worth it just to find two new guys to get these guys in here and see if they can build something with this team? Because I do think there's talent on this team. I really do, on both ends, despite the defense looking atrocious. It's just the issue is finishing with the sacks, you know? So I do think there is talent to build here, but I just think there's been too many mistakes from a roster building standpoint for Joe Shane to stay. And I think all these blown games with double digit leads, say what you want. There's probably other factors that go on throughout the game, but I'm blaming the coach for most of these losses. And if you're a fan out there that's ticked off about Jackson Dart getting hurt, you blame the coach too. I don't, because that's Jackson Dart's game. And I know you don't want to hear it. You want to say, like, hey, we got to keep him healthy. But that's the part of his game that makes him as good as he is. He has the running ability. I mean, you saw as soon as Russ came in, the defense was playing further back. They weren't on the line, and they were able to kind of just sit back. They knew Russ wasn't running. So when he's in, the ability to run is the X factor. And injuries happen. You know, as a coach trying to win games, you're gonna sit there and tell me he shouldn't run Jackson Dart. I don't buy it. He had two rushing touchdowns, damn near 60 yards on the game up until that point. He was being super effective, running 20-yard touchdowns, 10-yard touch. He was being super effective. And injuries happen. And he slid a ton in this game. So you have to like that if you're a Giants fan. You saw Jackson Dart kind of realize, okay, I'm going to stop taking these big shots when I don't have to, and I'm going to slide. On that play, he was trying to split defenders. He thought he could get more yards, and he took a big shot, and his head hit the ground pretty hard. So on that play, yeah, it sucks. Jackson Dart, concussion, left the game, and from there on out, the offense could not move the football, and the defense just couldn't stop anybody. Could not stop anybody. We run through the drives of those games, and it's just mind-boggling, the defense that was played. So we go to the fourth quarter. The Giants go up 20-10, and that's the biggest thing. That field goal on essentially what would have been the half-yard line, the 1 yard line. In my opinion, that was a mistake. And the one thing I want to point out is the difference in coaching mindset, the difference in mindset for Brian Daboll. You could see it. That game against Denver, Giants have the football on their own side of the field, and they decide to throw it, right? I mean, they don't want to stop. They don't want to continue to run the clock, make Denver burn that timeout. They go essentially for the win, a first down, and they win the game. And Dart throws an interception. Now, at the time of the play, I don't disagree with being aggressive. Jackson Dart had been playing his ass off the entire game in that Denver game. And I know he's a rookie, but he had been gashing that defense all day. So to trust him to make one throw, I don't blame Daboll for that. But what I do find hypocritical is in yesterday's game, up 17-10 on the Bears' 1 yard line, they kick a field goal. They kick a field goal. At the very worst, you don't get it. And Chicago has to go 99 yards. And at the very best, you're up 14. There was still way too much time left in that game, in my opinion, to kick a field goal. 10-19 was left in the fourth quarter when Younghoe made that field goal, 19-yard field goal. And not to mention, there was a defensive penalty for too many men on the field. And had the Giants accepted the penalty, it would have moved the ball half the distance to the goal line, which would have been the half-yard line. So you're telling me, and at this point, Jackson Dart is still healthy. Even, you know what? I don't think Dart was, excuse me, I'll take that back. I think Dart was out of this game by then. You're telling me that they can't run a tush push or something of that nature? Still, I believe you can get a tush push on the half-yard line with Russell Wilson. You want to put Daniel Bellinger up there? It doesn't matter. Theo Johnson, go ahead and do it. We saw the Seattle Seahawks do it with A.J. Barner instead of Sam Darnold. If that's what they want to do, go for it. You're on the half-yard line. Accept the penalty and try and make this a 14-point game because you've seen how this defense collapses in the fourth quarter. Your job is on the line. Coach to win the damn game. Don't coach just to get yourself a 10-point lead with 10 minutes left. If this was with 4 minutes left, fine. I'm with that. Kick the field goal. But there was still a ton of time. And you know the Bears are a talented offense and that they would likely eventually figure it out to get together and put together a good drive. Not a fan of that play, and it just highlights the hypocrisy of Brian Daboll and his coaching mindset. Denver, he goes for it, he's aggressive, and now he feels a bit of the pressure, 2-7 on the season, right? And he kicks a 19-yard field goal to go up 10. It totally backfired, and that's just one reason why I think this coach needs to go. He doesn't have a feel for these games. He's very back and forth on going for it in certain spots, being aggressive. Then he wants to be conservative and kick field goals. In my opinion, even better situations than the one in the Denver game. So there's just been way too many mistakes on that front. So the Giants lose this one 24-20. Final stats for Jackson Dart in his limited time on the field: 19 of 29 passing, 242 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. On the ground, he had 6 carries, 66 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. One of them, I believe, was a 24-yard touchdown. So, again, I don't blame Brian Daboll for running Jackson Dart as much as he did. It was quite effective. The Bears did not have an answer for it. It's a shame that football is the way it is and injuries do happen, and I can't really get on the coach for that. For Caleb Williams for the Bears, 20 of 36, 220 yards, touchdown, no interceptions. And then the part that really killed this defense was him on his legs. I believe it was the second to last drive, or maybe it was the last drive where he scored the touchdown. They went up 24-20 at that point. He had 8 carries, 63 yards, and a touchdown. That's, if you don't want to do the math at home, that's 7.9 yards a carry. So we'll round it up to 8. Just so you know, I'm a rounder, okay? So we're allowing 8 yards a carry to a quarterback who can run, but doesn't usually run like this every game. He's not like Jackson Dart going out there and running the ball. I like, for instance, the week before that against Cincinnati, 5 carries, 53 yards, and that's a pretty bad defense. The week before that against Baltimore, 3 carries, 24 yards. Against the Saints, 4 carries, -2 yards. Against the Commanders, 4 carries, -2 yards. He did have a touchdown in that game, so I'm assuming that was some kind of a sneak. But you can see Caleb Williams is not, that's not their game plan, to run him out of the pocket and to have him go run down the field. But it was working for them today, and that's what they did. So the defense just should be ashamed of themselves to not be able to stop that. And on the touchdown where the Bears took the lead, he looked like he was untouched. I mean, they sold the fake. Brian Burns collapsed, took the bait, and all of a sudden he just had the edge, and that was it. He was gone. So the Giants lose a game that they were in command of, up 17-7 early in the third, and then up 20-10 early in the fourth. And after the Jackson Dart injury, they just could not move the football, and the offense just went asleep. Now, one point I do want to bring up that I saw on Twitter yesterday: Bobby Skinner, the creator of the Giant Nation show, does a great job over there. I saw him tweet about Russell Wilson being quarterback 2 and how that's just a disgrace and how it's just because of optics as to why he's still the second string quarterback. And it made me really think and wonder, and I kind of agree with him. It's, at what point do we put Jameis Winston in one of these games and see what he can do? Because we know what Russell Wilson can do, and he can't do anything. I mean, sure, if you want to box score watch and tell me he was 3 for 7 for 45 yards, I would then counter and tell you, hey, remember the Devin Singletary little dump off throw he had? That he somehow blew up that tackler and made it into a 40-yard play? That was those yards right there. Other than that one little screen play that was a busted play, it was 2 for 6 for 4 yards on 2 or 3 drives that resulted in just nothing. So at what point do we then hold the coach and the GM accountable for just because of optics. That was the argument Bobby Skinner was making, and I agree with it. You bring this guy in to be your starter, right? To be the mentor for Jackson Dart. Your plan is to start him as long as you can, but it's a total, utter, complete you know what show the first couple of weeks. And so, as a coach and as a GM, you sense you're on the hot seat. You're forced to put Dart in earlier than you thought you were going to. But what do? You keep Russell Wilson as your quarterback too, despite seeing the many faults he has. They don't have an offense around him, which is the surprising thing. You would think for a quarterback they went out and signed and wanted to start, like if they had it their way, shout out Burger King, if they wanted it their way, Russell Wilson starts every game this year and the Giants win 10, 11 games, make the playoffs. But that obviously did not happen. So how do you bring in a guy to be your quarterback and you seemingly don't have an offense planned to execute around Russell Wilson? And maybe he's just that bad now where he just can't operate in this offense. But I do think a part of it is they just don't have the play calls for him. You could see with the difference, it's night and day when Dart is in and Russell Wilson is in terms of the play calling with that rushing upside. They have nothing for Russ. It's just awful to watch. And I know you'll say that Jameis Winston wouldn't be any different in terms of the running ability, but he's also not at the end of his career. I still think he has a lot left in the tank, and he has shown it with other teams in past years. And even if he's throwing you interceptions, that's what comes with Jameis Winston. But let the guy have a shot. To have him be a healthy scratch every week, to be your quarterback 3, I think is total mismanagement. I really do. I agree with Bobby. It's because of optics. They want to keep him quarterback 2. They don't want to make it seem like the guy they went out and signed as their big free agent quarterback is that bad, and they move him down to 3. And I really do think that gets in the way of the Giants winning this game. I think Jameis Winston maybe does a better job, but he can't do much worse, right? I mean, so that's my argument. So for the games upcoming, and especially this week, if Dart cannot go, if they force us to watch Russell Wilson for yet another game, I mean, at what point do you need to be sold? Get these guys out of here. Really? I mean, I'm already on board, but for anyone out there who's not on board yet with the firing of Brian Daboll and Joe Shane, I ask, how can you not be if they roll out Russell Wilson on Sunday against the Packers team that's going to go to the playoffs with Micah Parsons running around the edge? Russell Wilson seemingly won't have anywhere to go. I just don't see the reason other than optics. And that's another fault of this coaching staff and of this general manager and the front office. So again, I'm calling for the firing of Daboll and I'm calling for the firing of Joe Shane. We can go through the laundry list of mistakes. In fact, I will. Let's start with Joe Shane because I feel like everywhere on Sport Talk Radio, he's the one that's viewed as the guy that maybe has a chance to stay. Maybe, which doesn't make any sense. Why will fire the coach and keep the GM that you hired both at the same time? I mean, do we really want to do another Gettleman situation where we're keeping the GM on for more years and we're just firing coaches that he's brought in or that he's been hired with? Really? That's the game plan? I don't see it. So let's talk about his picks here, right? You obviously have to give him credit for Jackson Dart, who I think is going to be a stellar quarterback in the NFL. He traded up and he got him. I would say it's probably his best pick. Has to be. He drafted this team the franchise quarterback, and I give him immense credit for it. But I can't overlook the mistakes earlier on in this regime. For example, the big one that everyone wants to talk about, that everyone knows. How the hell is Deontay Banks a first-round pick? How? I really do question a lot of these mock drafts and the people who are these prospect gurus because they had him as a first-round pick, the Mel Kipers, everyone of that nature. They had him as a first-round prospect, and the Giants trade up a pick to go grab him, and he is virtually unplayable. Unplayable. He sucks. But because this team doesn't have any depth, which again, I blame on the coach, or excuse me, the general manager, he's forced to step in and play for a guy like Paulson Adebo, who was out this week against the Bears. And it showed. Banks, later in the game, on one drive, had 2 penalties. I mean, it's unacceptable. You go back to last week against the 49ers, Brian Robinson just runs him over. There was no effort there. Runs him right over. Wouldn't be surprised if Brian Robinson was like, hey, thanks very much for that, Banks. I needed that touchdown. Now I can get a contract, extension next year. Great. Happy to help you there, Brian. It really is unbelievable. And it's not just from a talent perspective as to why he's not good. There's no effort. That Brian Robinson play is the most recent example, but there's been plenty more of just giving up on plays. So I've had enough of Deontay Banks, and I'm sure everyone in the Giants fan base has. But again, because of optics, and he's a former first round pick, they got to play him. And they have to make him a second string guy at the very least. That's number one. Number two, and you all know where I'm going with this, Evan Neal, 7th overall. That might be his worst pick. I think it is. Because he virtually is unplayable. That's what they're telling us. He's healthy scratches. He's a healthy scratch every week. He does not suit up. He does not play. The 7th overall pick on a tackle who was awful. And I mean awful. And he can't even play guard either. So there's virtually no place for him to play on this team. So a 7th overall pick wasted. And again, because of optics, he's still on this team. I don't know why has not been cut. Realistically, they've already tried him at guard in practices, and he's already tried tackle, obviously. And if it's not working at either of them, cut your losses, sayonara. Hit the road, Evan. But again, because of optics, he's being kept around. And that's a huge swing and a miss. Huge. I mean, you think about the type of players that are picked in the top 7 range. We don't have to go too far back. Look at Malik Neighbors, for God's sakes. I mean, I know he's hurt now, but we all know the talent he has. We all know how he's going to contribute to this team in the years to come. He was picked 6th. 6th. He was picked 6th. 1 pick before Evan Neal's pick, hypothetically, right? And we got a guy who's a perennial Pro Bowler that maybe, has all pro aspirations down the line. And we got one guy who can't play. And not because of injury, because of talent. He just can't play. He sucks. So there's just been way too many mistakes and first round blunders. And the other big one, it's like the trifecta. It really is. The trifecta of Joe Schoen. Jalen Hyatt. I mean, oh my God. Now, I'm a big college football fan, right? So I'll just say that now. And I remember watching him at Tennessee in that Alabama game. The kid was absolutely awesome. 5 touchdowns. It was great. And I thought for sure he would turn into something into the NFL. But I guess all those clips of I think it was the Cowboys coaching staff or scouts that were maybe hosting him at a workout, they were saying he can't run routes. They might be right. Sure as hell seems like it. I mean, the guy's not playing. You traded up in the 3rd round to go get this guy, to be your deep threat guy, right? That was the plan, to be your deep threat guy. And he does not play. He does not play. He doesn't see the field. You would rather have Gunnar Olszewski go out on the outside, who's just a bona fide special team returner, right? For kickoffs and punts. You'd rather have him go play outside receiver than your former 3rd round pick. Make it make sense. Really, make it make sense. This has just been a total disaster from a roster management standpoint and from a coaching standpoint. Total disaster. And you look at Joe Schoen's draft from last year, right? Tyler Nubin and Drew Phillips both looked promising last year, had good rookie seasons. This year, they've taken steps back. They have. And I don't mean to be harsh on those guys. It is their second years, but they have taken big steps back. They have not been good. Then you let McKinney walk, right? Xavier McKinney, who's a guy who never gets hurt. That's the biggest thing. Even if a player's not good, or not awesome, right? If they're just a good player, but they can play every game, every snap of every game, that's a ton of value right there. And that's a guy in Xavier McKinney. But for him, he's an all-pro safety. So he's got the talent. He doesn't get hurt. So when you go out and you sign a guy like Javon Holland for similar money, by the way, and he's hurt, and he played yesterday, but before that, he was out for a game or two, right? I mean, so really just bad. You let McKinney walk, who's a captain, who was a locker room voice, didn't miss a game, and you replace him with Javon Holland for similar money and for a guy who gets hurt. Way more than McKinney. So that's another mistake there. And I can go on and on and on. The Daniel Jones saga. I know we want to put that behind us, but do we forget that they just handed him 80 plus million in guaranteed money? No, I don't forget that. And everyone that wants to say that they should have been kept around last year and get their guy, like, I'm happy that they did that. But people seem to forget that they chose Jones as their guy. $80 million towards one player. If that doesn't tell you that that's their guy, I don't know what else will. Committing that kind of money to somebody, really? Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen came together and said, we have to re-sign Daniel Jones. We have to give him this big contract. And I know how he's playing in Indy right now. I understand it. But as a Giant fan, objectively, you cannot sit here and tell me that over the 7 years he was here, even the year they went to the playoffs, he was not playing nearly as good as he is right now. And so maybe then that's a coaching issue. We can get to that discussion too. Maybe that's a coaching issue. but you gave him $80 million. So I'm here sitting and going, you had your guy, you paid him $80 million. It blew up in your faces, and then you begged the owner that you didn't have your guy, even though you committed $80 million of his money to Daniel Jones. It's a whole fiasco. There's been way too many mistakes. And as far as I'm concerned, way too many to overlook and to say, we'll bring these guys back because this is just unacceptable coaching, unacceptable player execution, and it's unacceptable roster management. So now you look ahead to the Packers game. And now what's the question, right? Jackson Dart, is he going to play? Is the guy going to play? If he doesn't play, do I even want to watch other than doing a post-game show afterwards and maybe doing and having Monday's episode next week? Do I really want to sit there and watch that Russell Wilson play against the Packers? No, I'm good. I'm good. I will watch, but I painfully do not. I do not want to. It would be against my will. I do not want to watch that game. I have zero faith in Russell Wilson. Zero. And if you're a fan out there, I don't know how you have an ounce of faith in Russell Wilson. I don't know how you do. It's just, it truly is. It truly is amazing how bad this football team is despite the names on this roster. You would think this defense would be a lot better. It's not. It just isn't. And the big thing to me that really stands out is they are second in the NFL in money spent towards their defense. They're behind the Pittsburgh Steelers. I believe the Giants are at about $135 million spent just towards their defense alone. You think about a lot of the big names on the defense making top dollar. Dexter Lawrence, who's been a disappointment this year. You had Carl Banks calling him out for effort. And I'm not going to sit here and say Dexter Lawrence is a bad football player because he's not. But you can definitely tell that there's a difference in play and production from what we've seen in years past. He's been in all pro conversations. He's been a Pro Bowl lock, right? And this year, he just does not seem to have the same production that he's had in years past. And you can say all you want, well, he's getting double teamed. Well, last I checked, he was getting double teamed last year, the year before that, pretty much ever since he became an all-pro candidate when he was up there with Aaron Donald getting, second place every year because Aaron Donald was just Aaron Donald. But again, we're seeing him get double teamed and we're seeing a lack in production. The edge rushers, this was supposed to be the big unit of this team. The big unit. And in my opinion, they have disappointed me. They really have. Because it's great to get pressure. It's great to hurry the quarterbacks. But in this day and age where most quarterbacks can run out of the pocket like Caleb Williams did 8 times yesterday, too many damn times. I mean, watching the game, how do you not sit there and go, get him, get him, get him, right? And you see Burns, you see Carter, you see Lawrence. Everyone's tracking him down. How many times did Burns have his jersey in his hand and he's pulling and he just couldn't bring him down? How many times did Kayvon dive at the legs and just couldn't get him down? Too many damn times. It was the whole game. In fact, they didn't have a single sack. They did not have a sack. 0. 3 quarterback hits and no sacks. But they had a ton of pressures. And I could tell that just from looking at the game, just from watching. They were in there all the time. They just couldn't finish the play. And how, as a coach, and this is where I don't fault Daboll, or I guess even Shane Bowen for that matter, even though I want to rag on the guy as much as I do want to, at a certain point, you have to ask these players to finish plays. And they have not come anywhere close, in this game at least. Brian Burns has been the only guy really to show up on that pass rush. 11 sacks heading into yesterday, still with 11. And he had plenty of chances to add to that total. He was leading the NFL in sacks with those 11 that I mentioned. And he had an opportunity to add to that total, but just couldn't finish the plays. Couldn't finish the plays. Now, if this was Lamar Jackson, I'd cut him some slack. Lamar is tough to tackle. He's elusive. He can get out of the pocket better than anybody. But this is, at the end of the day, this is Caleb Williams. And I know he's an athletic guy, but this is Caleb Williams. And you guys are getting paid $20+ million a year to sack the quarterback. Kayvon Thibodeau, you're looking for a contract extension last time I checked. They gave you the 5th year, but you're not tied in long term. So these guys are playing either on big contracts or playing for big contracts, and they just have not done it, other than Brian Burns, in which yesterday he did not have a good game from a position of just finishing plays. He did not have a good game, but he was getting active on plays, which is what he's been doing all year. But everyone else, Abdul Carter had a sack taken away because of a penalty. And that's the other thing. When they had sacks yesterday, it seemed like every time they had one, it was called back because of a damn penalty in the secondary. Probably by Deontay Banks, if we're being honest. He had 2 on the one drive. So it's a good chance it was him. but it's just it really is crazy. The amount of name talent they have on this defense, and they have not done anything with it. Nothing. They're the worst fourth quarter team in the NFL. They've given up the most points in the fourth quarter. And they said yesterday on the broadcast, it must have been like 100 times, but between their last 3 games before the Bears game, they had given up like 100 points in the last like 9 quarters or something, like 2 games in the fourth. So if you count the Broncos' fourth quarter debacle, and then you add up the other games, think about that: 33 plus 38 plus 34. That's what they had given up. And then yesterday, the defense looked so good through that first half, and it was all for nothing, all for nothing in the end. They blew the game. You had a feeling that they were going to come back, the Bears, that they were going to win that game. And if you want the math on that, when I tallied up the 33, the 38, the 34, it's 105 points. 105 effing points through 9 quarters of football. That's averaging just under 12 points a quarter. So call it a touchdown and 2 field goal, right? In that range. So that's unacceptable. Really, really is. And I know these are good teams that they gave up points to. Broncos game is unacceptable. The Eagles, right? And the Niners, I knew as soon as I saw McCaffrey was playing in that game, I knew it was done. I knew it was chips. This rush defense is horrendous as well. They are awful. So as soon as I saw that happen, I knew it was done. But as I said, we're looking ahead now. Giants are 2-8 on the season. Jackson Dart concussion in the game against the Bears. So we'll see his status for Sunday's game against the Packers. It's just so annoying, really is, having to watch this team, and as a fan, having to be a pessimist when there's points in the game where they just give up these plays, they start giving up points, and you just immediately start to revert back to weeks prior. And you're like, oh, I've seen this happen before. Even though we're up 30 effing points, we're still going to lose, right? And it happens anyway. Despite how improbable it is, it happens anyway. It truly is amazing how the Giants find ways to lose these games. It really, you have to be some kind of a special team to lose games like this. So, losers of 4 straight. They beat the Chargers, beat the Eagles earlier in the year. Season looked promising, 2-4. You had your rookie guy in there. Choked the game at Denver, and it's been downhill ever since. And I don't think Brian Daboll deserves another year here. I don't think Joe Shane deserves another year here. I think John Mara knows that, and I hope he comes to the same conclusion, because it is just a total mess. And while I think Brian Daboll is a good offensive coach, he's not a good head coach. He cannot run a team. He cannot find ways to win games. He finds ways to lose games, and that's not what you want from your head coach. Now, the last point I'll bring up before we wrap things up here, a lot of people will say, you got to keep Daboll, right? He's Jackson Dart's coach. You got to keep the guy who brought him in there, who knows him the best, right? You don't want to mess up with Dart's development. Well, to that I say, if Jackson Dart is as good as we think he is and is going to be, it does not matter who is coaching him. It does matter. But in terms of his development, the argument people make for Brian Daboll to stay, I don't think it's Brian Daboll or bust for Jackson Dart. I think he is way better than that, and I think he deserves better, because this is a guy who wants to win, says it every week. He's not used to losing, hates losing, and he's putting his body on the line, running all these balls, right? Running the ball down the field, excuse me, and he's putting his body on the line. This is a guy who wants to win, not afraid to take the big hit, and I understand that's an issue, and I agree, but this is a gutsy guy who wants to win football games, and you got to get him a coach in there that matches that energy, because Brian Daboll is just not it, and he's definitely lost his locker room too. That's the point I really wanted to hit on. I don't think Jackson Dart is coach proof. I think if you got a competent coordinator in here, or you get a guy like John Gruden, someone who has experience, I don't think Jackson Dart will have a sophomore year slump that everyone seems to think he'll have if they get rid of Daboll. And I just think there's been way too many mistakes to overlook to keep Brian Daboll and Joe Shane here. So that'll do it for episode 1, the debut episode of the Allen Hour. I appreciate you all tuning in. Expect videos Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays every week, and then a post-game show after every Giants game. So that'll be this Sunday when they play the Packers. So we'll have a video up for that too. I've been your host, Dylan Allen. I appreciate you tuning in. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Check out my Instagram. The Twitter. All the links will be in the description below. So make sure to check that out for more content, and let's go Big Blue.